Alrighty, this is going to be my review of Gran Turismo 7. Alrighty, so first off I want to say that I've been a huge fan of the Gran Turismo series over the years. I've played most of the games and I have to say that this one is by far the worst for me. Some of the issues with this game have already been gone over, but I've seen a lot of people miss a few key important elements that I wanted to take the time to give a more in-depth look at. I'll be covering some information about the microtransactions, the gameplay elements which lead you to them, and the game modes and how they differ from some of the other games in this series. So the first thing that caught me off guard when I first started playing this game is that the microtransactions are staggering in comparison to other games that they had in the past. Now, I'm definitely not a fan of microtransactions at all, but to give you an example, the previous game, Gran Turismo Sport, has a whopping 309 add-on car DLCs. I literally went and counted them out, with the most expensive being $2.99 in US dollars. Currently, the game is on sale for $19.99 on the PlayStation Store. But the thing that blows my mind is if I average the cost of purchasing these cars individually, and I add in the game's base price, and this does not include taxes by the way, that would be 309 different car purchases times $2, plus the $20 for the base game equals a grand total of $638, not including taxes. Now, to me, that just seems absolutely freaking insane. I can actually remember when my ex-boyfriend had purchased Gran Turismo Sport, and he had gone into the DLC section and started scrolling through it, and he was just like, I don't think this is for me, and returned it, so yeah. Let me get into some other topics here. So I almost never purchase the digital versions of games because I collect games. However, I was really bored. I've had some predatory things happening at work, and I just decided, hey, why not get the digital version? I have pretty fast internet, it should be ready to play, in a couple hours, etc. I also kind of concluded that this kind of game usually has a ridiculous amount of high sales volume, and the likelihood that it becomes some kind of collector's thing, especially with all the bad press it's received, is probably pretty low. What kind of struck me in the beginning as well was that the first chunk of the game download did not allow me to actually play the game. There's some kind of weird music challenges in the beginning. So after waiting, an hour, hour and a half for this game to, load in, I realized that I can't play the actual game. So the first thing I actually did was I went onto Google and I decided to see if there was any credits or car rewards or anything that would kind of, give me the incentive to play this mode, and there isn't. There's no point. I can't win any cars, I can't win any credits, so, there's another 4 hours left for me to wait before I can actually play the game. So I'm like, you know what, fine, I'm just gonna find something else to do. I was a little disappointed, but, that's just kind of being an adult. So the game is a staggering 107.9 gigabytes on my hard drive. So as you can imagine, it took, probably, I think, 6 hours to download. I would say that, most people probably it would take a little longer. I have relatively decent internet here in a large city. So, it wasn't too bad. And honestly, it was probably a good thing because it was a little later in the day when I decided to download it, and then I ended up, kind of just waiting until the next day to play the game. Which was probably a good thing considering the fact that the game was down for 30 hours anyway. So, let's see here. My impulse purchase was already starting to feel like regret before I even, was able to play the game. Is kind of what I wanted to preface there. So I finally get into the game, and there's a long, unskippable cutscene in the beginning, and I'm like, you've gotta be freaking kidding me. So I go downstairs, decide to make myself a snack, wait for this thing to go away, and then I'm now at the point where I'm hoping I can actually finally start to play the game. Woo! Oh my gosh. Anyway, it just kind of for me added insult to injury that, you know, I can't play the game in the download chunk that it says I can. I gotta wait the extra 6 hours, which causes me to play the game another day when it was kind of an impulse purchase, and now you're gonna make me wait through some annoying unskippable cutscene. I'm like, oh boy, I really don't think they thought about the consumer side of this product at all. And I do want to first and foremost call this a product because it's quite the product, if you know what I mean. Anyway, the game loads up, and the UI is pretty boring. Like, this looks like a free-to-play mobile game to me. Ooh, nothing compelling here, in my opinion. The first thing that you do in this game is you do the story mode, which is basically the cafe. So most of these menu books require you to do 3 races, which allow you to collect roughly 3 cars. And I have to say that I know that that's not the case for all of them, because 39 times 3 equals 117 cars. And there's only 80 cars in my garage. So some of these missions had you do things like widen the car body, take pictures, and various other menial tasks that I think have no point in this game at all. But, you know, you have to do them at certain points to progress the game, so you kind of just, you know, bite your tongue and you move forward. Let's see what else here. So I purchased the digital deluxe version of the game, which came with 1.5 million in credits from the start, and I can safely say that by the end of the game I only have about 396,000 credits, and I still had to grind. And it's just kind of horrifying, because if I want to soup up one of the cars, which you oftentimes have to do, the prices are oftentimes just exorbitant, and they don't reflect the actual races that you're doing. Let me give you an example with a car that I haven't upgraded really quick here. Let's try this one. No, the sports cars usually don't have very many upgrades. Let's see. Let's find a normal car. How about that? I know I haven't driven that one. Actually, I haven't driven more than I think 4 or 5 of these cars, which is kind of insane as well. But I'll get into that in just a second. So, if I wanted to upgrade this car, I would obviously have to pay a lot of money. Especially into the semi-racing, racing categories, which are where you're going to see pretty much the most PP bang for your buck. Like, this increases my performance points by about 11. But yeah, some of these expensive ones too only increase it by just a tiny amount, and it's kind of ridiculous. You know, it kind of requires that you spend about $150,000 to $500,000 just to upgrade your car to get it to be like semi-drivable. And these tires, oh my goodness. Just bizarre how expensive the tires are. Especially, you know, because the director of the game came out with a statement, like, we want, you know, prices to reflect, like, the real world. I'm like, it doesn't cost me $12,000 to put tires on a freaking Volkswagen. And this is coming from a Volkswagen owner. I've owned the Volkswagen Rabbit, the 2008. I had the GTI Volkswagen 2018. I've also had the 2019 Jetta GLI as well, and I put tires on all 3 of those cars, and never once did it cost more than a couple $100, so what a joke. I mean, the other huge issue too is, with that statement, that Formula 1 racers and various other races in real life, you can actually win a substantial amount of money. I mean, you'd have to be able to. Racing is a team sport, And that team sport obviously requires, you know, multiple staff, multiple upgrades to cars. I mean, you practically need a physicist to make sure that the aerodynamics and the weight distribution on the cars are right. You need a really, really good mechanic, like a world-class one. I mean, you gotta pay the driver, you gotta have multiple cars. I mean, come on. This is just insulting, 35,000. And I mean, at this late in the game for a 700 PP race, to only get 35,000 credits when most of these cars cost just so much more money than that is kind of like a slap in the face. You know, if I get to a point in this game where I feel like I need to buy a new car with a higher base PP, I mean, I'm not getting away cheap. So let's say I'm at that point in the game, and I just want to buy, like, a Mercedes. I'm going to have to dump 184k in credits, and then on top of that, I'm going to have to dump in another, what, 200 to 300,000 to upgrade it? That's $500,000. If I ground out that 35,000 credit race, I'd have to do it more than 10 times. And as you can see, that lap has more than, that race has more than one lap in it, so it's not something that I can do in a quick period of time. So ultimately, everything in this game is just made to lead you to go to the in-game credits purchasing, which kind of sucks, because that's not been present in, I think, the first 5 Gran Turismos. GTA, geez, it's not Grand Theft Auto. Goodness. Anyhow, the cafe missions, another thing that kind of blows my mind was that you could actually completely get around some of them just by simply purchasing one of the cars. So, like, for instance, in Menu Book 1, I need to have these 3 cars, and they're all Japanese cars that were relatively low priced. I think these were all under 15,000. So, and as you can see, the Aqua S11 is actually one of the starter cars that you could have just bought right from the get-go. I, however, had that 1.5 million burning a hole in my pocket from the beginning, so the first car that I bought was actually the Ferrari, I'll show you right here. It was the F12 Berlinetta, year 2012. And I used that for, I think, probably a good third of the game, the races that don't have any PP limitations, or limitations of where the car was actually manufactured. So, and that's another kind of thing that blew my mind as well, is that when I had gotten to the end of the game, I had basically only used 3 cars. And they're right here. It's the 911 Porsche. I use those for the Porsche Cups and some of the UK races. Just because it had better handling than the Berlinetta. I mostly use the Berlinetta for the no PP requirement or regional requirement. And then I used the GTR Nissan for all of the 4-wheel drive and Japanese car races, as well as I put dirt tires on that to win the Audi Quattro, the Pikes Peak one. Which is the best car in my opinion for the dirt races. But woo, just mind blown sort of a situation. And the only reason that I actually knew that this was the best car for the dirt races, the Audi, was because I googled it after losing a couple of times. And even then, in prior Gran Turismo games, typically you would win like one of the rally cars before you get to the dirt races, but I didn't have any in my inventory when I got to that point in the game, so I had to throw dirt tires on a car that wasn't really optimized for that, or pay almost $500,000 in credits, which I didn't even have at this point in the game. And that was just really me upgrading what I said before, was just 3 cars. So, I mean, that's kind of scary. If I had not purchased the digital deluxe version of this game, I would have probably had to put another 20 hours of just straight grind into this. So, that's not good, in my opinion. So, another thing that I noticed was I was trying to be clever. I uploaded my save file to the cloud because I wanted to test out a couple different supercars after I had gotten that $1 million in credits, which was basically the apology for the servers going down. And I was like, you know, I didn't want to just gauge these off performance points alone. I wanted to like see how they handled, because that's more important to me for, you know, races with lots of turns. So the first car I buy is this Lambo right here, and I mostly bought it just because it looked really cool. I got in it, I drove it, I had some fun with it, and I was like, I also really wanted to try this Porsche. And so what I did was, and this is something I do in a lot of games to kind of like test things like how you could in the old days when you had a memory card, I uploaded it to the cloud after, before I purchased that Lambo. And the other car that I really wanted to test out, which I still haven't been able to do, was this Porsche right here. It had a little bit lower performance points, but it had a higher horsepower, and the description said that it actually handles pretty well despite like the high horsepower. So I was like, okay, I want to try that car too. So I re-downloaded my cloud save. You know, I checked it. It was time-stamped in the past, you know, before I had purchased the Lambo. And to my horror, when I load back in, I was actually still in the Lamborghini. And I was just like, how can that be? And it's due to the fact that this is a DRM always online game. So I can't even, like, how I could in the old days, test some of these cars before I keep them. I can't even test drive them like I could at a real dealership. So just the joke that the director came out and said, I want this to be more like real life, when you can't even sell the cars. I just have to say, dude, you're delusional. Your PR team sucks, if that's, you know, the statement that they put out. Just what a joke. Oof. I mean, the game was at least pretty fun throughout my experience. But one of the issues that I definitely had was things like this. Some of the cars are just, like, sold out at certain times, as you can see there. And you can also see here that some of these supercars, you know, I can't get them. And, I mean, this is alluding to limited stock, which means that, you know, that one probably will get sold out too. And I'm like, why would this be the case? I mean, it's just so completely insane to me. I mean, the game is kind of like boasting that it has this huge car collection of 424 cars. Playing the base game, I earned about 80 of them. And some of them I'm not even able to ever get now? Is that like what the game is telling me? It's just kind of icky. Like, it's a game, it's not supposed to be reality. And that's where I have a lot of problems with the missions, and also with the license tests. Some of these missions are just ridiculously hard, and you have to drive crappy cars that I don't want to drive, not even in real life, in stupid conditions like rain. And if I skid out of the lines of the road or touch another car or whatever, I'm just disqualified and I have to start the mission all over again, regardless of how long it is. Now, another thing that just blew me away was that the license center normally is how the progression in the game unlocks. You know, the game usually is like, hey, get your first license, you can do these races, get your next license, here's another group of, you know, like 10 races, blah, blah, blah. So the game only made me go up to the international B licenses. Or did it even make me go that far? I could have swore I completed these, but it's showing that some of them aren't complete, which is weird, because I'm pretty sure I did these, but it might have to do with that cloud save situation. Like, it remembers the car I bought, but it doesn't remember that I finished this license set. Adorable. Anyway, there's 5 licenses. The international A, I obviously didn't bother with in the super licenses, because I googled it before I was going to put the time sink into it. After I completed all 39 of those cafe missions, I was like, surely if I unlock another license, there'll be another set of races. but there isn't. So I was like, this game feels kind of half-finished to me, and the only purpose of tackling these harder licenses is to just win the 2 cars that are associated with it. But in order to win those 2 cars per license class, you have to get all bronze and all gold. So I can safely say that most people are not going to get a gold on any of these races on their first try. As you can see here, I didn't. I got a couple silvers. But getting the golds is a lot more challenging. And I don't want to do it because I'm driving a specific car on a tiny part of a track that's tuned a specific way, usually to have really shitty handling, and I have to do a time trial. It's not fun, honestly. I've never liked the licensing portion of the Gran Turismo games, but in other games I've found them to be easier. In this game I found them to be just a little bit tedious and not very fun. Goodness, let's see here. Kind of got a little off my script, started rambling. I mean, I really wish I had done more research. I wouldn't have bought the game if I had seen that there were all these negative reviews. But I mean, if I Google the game even right now, on Metacritic it shows like an 87%. Google just conveniently happens to hide that the user reviews for this game as of right now, which is 3:28 at 12 p.m. Eastern, is 1.7, which is in the top 100 worst reviewed games of all time, which I honestly think that this game deserves. So another big thing that I noticed, and the only reason I even went into this mode was to get an achievement, was to, you know, do one of the online matches, which, goddamn, that's annoying, so that I could get a trophy. And like, here's this event, it's today. Okay, whatever. Let's say I want to enter this, which I definitely don't. They're not yet accepting entries, and this doesn't even allow me to do this online race until whatever time 16:45 is. You know, so I can't do the online version of this game whenever I want to earn that trophy. I have to, you know, set an alarm on my phone to go back and do this, which, sorry, but that's not how I'm gonna handle playing. And yeah, you can do the lobby, which is quicker at matching you, but I've never really been a fan of online missions in games. I usually play the single player modes. I'm more of a like RPG player than anything else, but I've always had a passion for cars and Gran Turismo, but this game, whew, sucked the passion right out of me. Everything is just a microtransaction motivator. So I have these 80 cars. I've beaten the game. There's no other content left to do other than, like I said, those realistic annoying missions, which, sweetie, not gonna happen. So if I want to flush out some of my cars, which most of these I don't even want anyway, I just have to grind out credits and buy them directly. Now, again, the prices are supposed to be in line with real life. A used Focus from 2015 is not 30 grand. I'm sorry. Most Mustangs are not this expensive, especially like I've seen the prices for some newer Shelby Mustangs relatively recently, and they were sitting around like 60 to 75, but not for a 2016 model. I mean, you drive a car off the lot and you already lost 5 grand right there off the bat, so saying that these are in line with reality is just simply not the case. And by the end of the game, I think I only had about 2 million credits. And the only reason I had that amount of credits left was because I already had the 1.5 from the beginning. So if you take that 1.5 out, like, in reality, like, I only made like $400,000 in profit in this game, outside of the 3 cars that I purchased and tuned up to win the vast majority of the races. So it's just icky. It feels icky. Like, for instance, you could go on vim.net, VIMM.net, you could download a PlayStation 2 emulator, you could download Gran Turismo 3, then you could go to GameFAQs.com, go to the save files, and download a save file that has every single car unlocked, and then you could just go ahead and play that game how I think it was originally intended to be played. You know, experiment with a bunch of different cars and souping them up and how they'll react on different racetracks with different tires at different times. Find one you love, you know, customize the color of the wheels, trick it out, and make it, you know, like your favorite car sort of a situation. If I want to do cosmetic things to my car, as I already kind of mentioned, it's not terribly cheap. If I want to, for instance, widen a body, or add a spoiler, which I don't think I can do on my Lambo, I've seen it be 20, 25,000 for those features, and they're mostly cosmetic, as well as the wheels. Like, most of them were like 2,000 to 10,000 per wheel set, and it's just ridiculous. It made me not want to touch the wheels. It made me not want to do anything cosmetic because my credits were so tight, and I didn't want to keep rerunning old races just to like make a little bit of money to, you know, make my car look cute. Oof. I mean, this game is basically like Pokemon, but with cars, and a lot of predatory microtransactions. It's just completely bananas. And I mean, another thing that kind of is frustrating is a lot of people live in areas with sketchy internet. I mean, in the US, what, 40% of people live in rural areas with limited internet access? I mean, if I'm online playing the single player mode, what happens to me if my internet takes a poop? Is it gonna kick me out of the race that I'm in and force me to redo it? I mean, that sucks. If I'm in an online race, do I not get any credits? If I'm on the final lap, like, come on, those are terrible decisions in a game that is mostly what I would call single player. You know, if you think about like Pokemon, you know, you're trying to get all the Pokemon. This is a game where it wants you to get all the cars. But I can't get all the cars because some of them are limited. Another thing that I found horrifying was that there are invitations to purchase certain cars. And here, I'll show you an example of it. So Bugatti is part of the Volkswagen family as well as Audi. So I've always really loved like those cars for some reason. And I get an invitation to buy this Bugatti Veyron 2013 for, you know, a cool $2 million. And the thing is, I went through all the cars in the beginning because I wanted to make, you know, good decisions so that I didn't have to waste a lot of time grinding. And this car was available. And then I later, you know, with one of these roulette spin tickets that you get an invitation to buy a car that I already had the option to buy in the first place. And I'm like, this is just predatory. And it has this cute little, like, timer that says if I don't buy it by then, that it's gonna go away. Like, I won't be able to buy it anymore. So creating mechanics by which you can't catch them all in a game that wants you to catch them all is just kind of just the definition of being a douchebag, in my opinion. I mean, on top of that, they altered the credits payout for some of the races of the game while I was playing it, which also demotivated me to play the game as well. I mean, I just look at it this way. This is a video game. If I wanted reality, I could just drive my happy ass to actual work and grind for real dollars to buy another car. I don't need a second job, and this game desperately wants to become my second job. And it doesn't pay me to do that, so I don't have an incentive to play the game anymore. I mean, goodness. Whew. Something that kind of made me giggle is Polyphony, the name of the studio that makes the game. It's a musical term saying that, you know, combining multiple elements will make the whole of the music great, sort of a situation. And they've combined a bunch of shitty elements to predatorily exploit children and adults into paying for fake virtual currency. Whew. But another thing that blew my mind too is the achievements. There are just so many of them that are terrible, and all of them, I would say not all of them, but most of them kind of want you to spend your in-game money on things that you don't need to spend your money on. Like these two right here, the memento from the Nürburgring and the memento from Le Mans, they have a really low capture rate because both of them require winning cars that cost a ton of money. Like this BMW Grade 3 and the Audi R18. I think this one's 3 million and this one's 2 million. Grinding out 5 million of credits in this game, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do that. Like, just to get 2 bronze medals to take a picture with the car. It's bizarre. Like, I don't want to take 100 photos of not a real car. Finish 50 races in sport mode when I can't just immediately play it right off the bat. That's never gonna happen. I haven't even done one, because I'm not gonna sit in a lobby for 30 minutes. Increase a car's rigidity 10 times. That's an expensive upgrade that costs like 20 to 50 grand on cars. I mean, and then there's things that are just annoying, like get into a pit stop and change the tires or the fuel, or run out of fuel. Win the 10 races on dirt tracks when there's only 3 tracks in the game. A lot of these are just so grindy and terrible. Like this drive a Formula Car one is tied to a mission, and that mission is one of the realistic ones. It's on a raining track, and you just basically spin out for trying to turn slightly. There's just so many of these that are terrible. Like one of them is buy 10 cars. One of them is widen the body, which costs money. Another one of them is get 100 cars. I think you should at least earn that many when there's over 400 cars in the game just via the cafe mode. But I didn't even get that many. I mean, goodness. I mean, I fulfilled the requirements for the ending, so. And these are all terrible too, like drive 1372 miles, 20, they're just all extremely grindy. And if they're not grindy, they want you to spend money most of the time. It's just, it's predatory. It's every single point of this is to get you to be like, I'm emotionally and mentally exhausted. It's to get you to go over to the PlayStation Store. And it's to get you to buy this stuff. Where are the add-ons? It took them off because it knows I'm talking shit, but it wants you to buy this stuff. And another thing is just ridiculous about this is, let me move my video really quick here. I can't buy 1,000,000 credits, for which most of the like supercars cost, without buying 2 different packages. So it's, you know, the game is nudging you from here to here. Ugh, it's just disgusting. Whew. But one of the big things that I found terrible as well is a lot of the older Gran Turismo games came with this like AI racing mode, so that you didn't have to like sit for 20 hours while, you know, you did like the 24-hour Le Mans or something. And you could like level up your AI on your race car drivers, and then, you know, sick your AI for a little bit less credits than if you had played it yourself on the endurance matches, for which I haven't even found any endurance matches in this game, to win those big amounts of credits so that you can go and get these fancy cars. Making this game be online, for me, does nothing, because not everybody wants to do the multiplayer stuff. Ugh. I don't know. I think what would have really helped this game is, for one thing, to add more licensed music like they had done so in the past, because they mostly used classical music, and the reason that they did that is because it's outside its copyrightable situation, so it's basically in the public domain and free to use. If they added some different difficulty modes, especially for these missions and for the license tests, so that you could a little bit more easily get the golds to unlock some of the cars. That would incentivize me to play it more. Goodness. I mean, they especially need to lower the cost of the tuning shop stuff, because, like I said before, again, I'm hammering this point home, I only drove 3 of the cars for the majority of the 39 cafe missions. I just feel like this game was rushed to market. If the licenses corresponded to unlocking newer missions or Formula 1 stuff or whatever, that would be better. You can't see that there's a super license thing here as well, but if you unlock B, it'll show you the super license one as well for 6 sets of licenses. I mean, it's a video game. It needs a little bit less reality. It doesn't need the DRM at all, in my opinion. Certainly doesn't need the microtransactions. I mean, that doesn't make this game more fun in any way, shape, or form. Oof. I know there's this 1.9, you know, coming out in April, and that they're gonna add the credits up to 100% back on here. And I think it looked like they were also going to, if you know, made money during that point of time, that they'll give you some of your money back. But I mean, at this point, I already beat the game. Unless they tie some new cafe missions to the license center to give me a reason to unlock the licenses in the first place, like, why am I gonna pick this game up again? I already beat it. I'm done with it. And why am I gonna try to catch them all when some of these cars are no longer available to me? Just wow. That's all I have to say. In conclusion, Sony and Polyphony have gone full circle into just becoming straight up hypocrites. I mean, remember when the PS4 launched? It wasn't that long ago. And all these Sony executives are making fun of Xbox's DRM and saying, you know, like, hey, here's how you play a PlayStation 4 game, you know, if you want to, like, swap it with your friend. You know, and it's just a dude handing another dude a copy of a game, and wow, it works. You can just play it right there. And now they've gone ahead and, you know, backpedaled into this nonsense, so, oof. The other thing is, too, you can't even get a refund for this game if you bought it digitally. Like, I actually went to Sony's chatbot because I was kind of pissed after review bombing it on Metacritic as well, and you know, if they were basically like, oh, have you downloaded this game? It's yours forever, fuck you, sort of a thing. I mean, heck, at least Steam gives you 2 hours, but I don't think in 2 hours this game is gonna rear its ugly head with the microtransactions. So even if that were the case for me, if I bought this on Steam, I'd still be in the same situation because I put enough hours on it to not get that refund. So again, I think I've only bought like 2 games digitally in the last like 5 or 6 years. It just leads me to not want to buy digital games anymore. Like, if I buy it from Amazon, I can return the game to Amazon if it's a piece of crap. In fact, I did that with Biomutant, which is one of the worst games I've ever played. So, I don't know. I think the lesson here is just don't buy games that have microtransactions in them, and companies won't make them anymore. It's kind of that simple. Not only that, but buy physical versions of the game. For one, they download a lot faster onto your hard drive, and for 2, ugh, goodness, you can return them. So, I hope you enjoyed the review, and we will see you next time.